If you could just comment or put a thumbs up if you can hear me.
Yes,
Assalamu
can you?
alaikum. I can hear you.
Assalamu
So,
alaikum. Hear you.
Jazakallah for attending. So yeah, so thank you for attending our knife crime webinar, which hopefully we can is an important issue and hopefully one with which we can save lives. Um, in terms of our agenda for today, um, we're going to start off with some Quran recitation from Imam Uthman, and then we'll get going. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Imam Uthman to start off with some recitation.
Okay, shall I get started? I just didn't hear that quite clearly.
If you
Yep.
get started, inshallah, yeah.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الإنسان ما غرك بربك الكريم الذي خلقك فسواك فعدلك في أي صورة ما شاء ركبك كلا بل تكذبون بالدين وإن عليكم لحافظين كراما كاتبين يعلمون ما تفعلون إن الأبرار لفي نعيم وإن الفجار لفي جحيم يصلونها يوم الدين وما هم عنها بغائبين وما أدراك ما يوم الدين ثم ما أدراك ما يوم الدين يوم لا تملك نفس لنفس شيئا والأمر يومئذ لله صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah khair, Imam Uthman. So without further ado, let's continue. So the first thing is really, well, obviously in terms of from our side, from the Muslim Council of Britain, we've kind of, we've got Brother Waja leading it and we've overhauled it. So I said at the beginning that I'm the director of A&E for the Muslim Council of Britain. So what does that mean and how is that relevant to you and in terms of our session today? Well, basically what we found is that so far we're very reactive when it comes to any kind of issues on the ground. Say, for example, the case of the grooming case, the tweet happens, things blow up, and then once everything is blown up and Islamophobia is on the rise, then we're reacting to it. Our idea is that we want to be proactive rather than reactive, and it's going to be a first of a kind in any kind of Muslim organization. And this knife crime is a case in point. There's been a recent spike in knife crime, and we want to be at the forefront of it. Um, and so that's the idea behind the A&E department in the Muslim Council of Britain. So we can be strategic, have a plan about it, short, medium, and long term, with regards to, say, for example, again, so in the case of knife crime, well, fine, it's a problem. It's a problem not just in non-Muslim communities, but also in Muslim communities. Not necessarily disproportionate, but how can we address it? What are the key fundamentals that we can do? Well, in this case, a webinar about knife crime bins. How can we do that best? Well, why don't we look at organizations like and mosques like Green Lane Masjid or Balam and Tuti Masjid who implemented them very successfully, and how can we roll that out around the country? Which is not only adding value to Muslims and our safety, but to Britain as well. So, what is it that we can do as a community to target knife crime in general? Well, there's lots of initiatives, obviously, and which local councils and communities already have in place. But statistically, it's been shown that with knife bins, it gives an opportunity for people to be able to dispose of those knives and make the right choice rather than, well, they don't have anyone to dispose of, they keep it on person, and that increases knife crime. And let's just get an idea of the proportion of the issue at hand, right? So again, just in the last year, 55,000 related knife offences. Now, I'm not saying that that's all selectively in our Muslim community, but there is the majority of the Muslim community in Britain is from an are less economically well off, and therefore there is a disproportionate amount of crime that's taking place there, whether we're affected or whether it's a problem inside our communities as well. And 55,000 is a lot. And of that, obviously, you can see a large pool, that 15,000 was in London alone. And the key point is that of all homicide, 41% affected knife crime. So even if we can affect even just 1 or 2% of that, that's a huge amount. So not only can we show, not only can we, from an optical perspective, add value to society, but we can make our neighborhood safer as well. And just to make it kind of bring it to light, just some recent cases. So, I'm sure you all saw on the news in Birmingham and also in Sheffield, the 12-year-old that was killed. And in fact, more local to myself in Brighton Hove and Imam Osman as well, just in the last 6 months, we've had 2 fatal stabbings within the Muslim community, which shows that this really is a very challenging problem, and something which is just getting worse as economic situations are getting worse and worse. And well, why is it important for mosques? Well, if you think about it, well, we have over 1,500 mosques across the country. Now, obviously, we can't target all mosques, but as a vision, in terms of if we can have if we can say that having a knife bin reduces mortality or homicides by X%, and you can have that across mosques around the country, then we can really have a significant impact on what is really a devastating issue. Because, for example, in the United States, where gun crime is the main issue, well, guns are not allowed here. So for us here in Britain, the biggest problem is knife crime, and we've got a lot of youth which are involved in it. And the problem is, once that knife comes, whether they themselves went and bought it, or whether it's passed on to them by someone else, they're then stuck and they can't do anything about it. And the amnesty knife bins give them an opportunity to say, look, enough is enough, dispose of that knife, and that's it, without any ramifications. So this is a picture of what a knife amnesty bin looks like. Like I said, there's lots of charities and local initiatives, depending on where your masjid is located, that facilitate this, and we'll have a much more in-depth discussion in our panel in just a moment. And the idea is that, as you can see, it's a sealed bin. You pop the knife in, and the local authority will empty that, and then that's the end of that. Because obviously, as we've mentioned, the pros are really that there is a safe way to get rid of weapons, and these weapons are a key part of the violence that occurs. The problem is obviously in terms of, and which is where we are the challenges in terms of how do we first get those bins in place, what are the costs, how does it work? Well, that's the idea of the webinar. That's the idea of our panel that's coming up, in terms of giving us all an idea, even myself as well, to be honest, about how do we implement these knife bins and what's the best way that we can safely have them in place where it's reliable, and it's not just a case of we put a bin in place and then it's not never emptied or it's never looked after. So we have a proper pathway. So to introduce you to our panel today, so we've been very, very fortunate to that Lindsay Taylor, who's the CEO of MEND, which, if you don't know, is the Muslim Engagement and Development NGO. She's kindly agreed to chair our panel today. And also, very fortunately, we have 2 stars in the UK community in terms of getting knife bins in place and having good results, and that is Green Lane Masjid, and as well as Tooting and Balham Mosque. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Lindsay to kick off with the panel discussion. So if we get, yeah.
Lindsay, you're on mute.
Lindsay, if you want to unmute yourself kindly.
Oh, assalamu alaikum. Sorry, I was just saying I'm not sure if it was very broken at the end, so I wasn't sure if you'd handed over to myself or not yet.
Sorry, yes. So we'll start the panel discussion now. So I'll hand over to yourself. and if you kick off the panel with the brothers from Tooting and Balham as well as from Green Lane Masjid.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And assalamu alaikum. And thank you so much to everybody for having me here this evening. It's an incredibly important issue that we're talking about and dealing with this evening. So I'm based in Glasgow, which was at one point the knife capital of Europe and was also the murder capital of Europe as well. It took a lot of hard work for a lot of individuals, not myself, but a lot of other individuals to change that narrative round. And I am absolutely delighted that mosques are leading the way on this now. So I'd like to dive in with both of our panelists. So thank you so much for coming. What I'd like to just open up to both of you first and just ask, how did the idea for the knife bins come about within your mosques? So Brother Ashrad, if I can start with yourself from Tooting and Balham Mosque.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum, everybody. So Jazakallah for inviting me to talk about, what we felt was incredibly important. So it wasn't so much of an idea as much as it was a concern at the time. We were sort of noticing a huge increase in London of knife crime, 2014, 15, and I think 2015 was probably, it was high. It was nearly 10,000 knife crime related incidents that happened in 2015, 16, which by the time we installed our knife bin had increased, almost doubled to the 16,000. And that was incredibly worrying for us because we've got many young people. It's a young borough in Wandsworth in particular. We've got lots of young people, lots of schools attached to the masjid. We have Islamic schools and nurseries and secondary schools. And we were very, very worried that, young people either attached to the mosque or around the mosque, so whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim, doesn't matter. We didn't want them to be either a victim or a perpetrator of knife crime, right? So that's really what took us into that thinking, I guess, of just knowing what's going on around us, and in particular, London, obviously, very high rates of knife crime at any point, and a lot of that was seen in Wandsworth because the figures actually are that nearly 50% of all knife related crime in southwest London is in the borough of Wandsworth, where we are. So that was really important.
My goodness, thank you so much for the fact that you're doing this and leading on this, and also the fact that it's open to non-Muslims as well. So it's not just if you're Muslim, and I think that's incredibly important, and it really shows real initiative within mosques when initiatives like this are open to everybody. Brother Abdul Rahman, what about yourself? What brought Green Lane Mosque to want to engage with these knife bins?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I think it was, again, like Brother Ashraf said, it was the increasing number of knife crimes within the West Midlands area, particularly in the area that we live in. I mean, GLM is very, very kind of, and always has been since probably the early 80s, very focused on youth. Now, I think that was the primary focus into which the knife crime came about. We had interfaith partners as well. The knife bank is actually run by Bishop Desmond Jadu. He installed it for us. So I think that went a long way in terms of working with local authorities and working with local councillors. But we've seen, in terms of statistics, just 2024 alone, it was almost 5,500 just in the West Midlands area. That's 178 incidents per 100,000. Now, that's the highest in England and Wales. Now, this is an ongoing concern, obviously, for everyone. But I think the primary concern is how we tackle it and how we get some of the youth to use these knife bins. I mean, we empty our knife bins every 6 months to a year, and every time we do empty it, we've had a firearm at one point in the knife bin. Every time we do empty it, we're collecting almost a few hundred knives, machetes, knuckle dusters, and so forth. So it is a growing concern, and also it's I think. I mean, recently, about 3-4 months ago, we had an event, a youth event, and we regularly have youth events. Brother Samir will touch upon that a bit later on. He's a Dawa manager, but there was a young lad that handed a knife at the end of the event, and when you see things like that, I mean, it just makes it all worthwhile, really. To be honest, it makes all that effort that you've put into all these talks and all this youth engagement and all these youth clubs that we do and all the voluntary engagement that we have. It all just makes it worthwhile, and I'm sure it's the same with Brother Rashad, along with other masjids and other mosques in the England area.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's where we are at the moment, and there's so much more work to do, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, just also to say, just corroborate what Brother Rahman's saying is, we've also seen, so since we installed the bin in 2019, we've seen probably 1,500 to 2,000 things enter the bin, including
Yeah.
firearms, machetes, all
Wow.
manner of, sharp objects.
Mm.
That has been actually quite surprising because even though we were concerned for London, we were not expecting that level of engagement by the community to actually utilize the bin in the way that it's utilized. So it is a thing. So before we launched it, I'm sorry, I may go on to one of your.
No, please do, please do.
So what we did, we already had an opinion that we want to launch a knife bin. But before taking that to the community, what we said was we're going to have a conference that's entitled Lives Not Knives. That was our campaign, effectively. And we brought in Jennifer Beckford. She was the mother of a young man, Nicholas Stewart, 25 years old, who was basically just knifed and killed whilst playing football in the local area in Wandsworth itself. So we invited her. We invited a local bishop. We had our own mufti, of course, as part of those proceedings. We had one of our counsellors from Mindworks. She's actually a counsellor for trauma, and we had Barbara Ahmed, who was, he runs youth initiatives, and he's an anti-crime youth activist, and he's been to jail. So that's the other side of it that we wanted really to bring to the youth and to the parents, to bringing all of these people together, actually put a storyboard as to why after the event and getting the agreement during that conference with everybody to say, well, actually, we need to have an output from this event. It's not just an event. There's an output to it. And the output is that we're going to have a knife bin outside the masjid. So that then gets the buy-in from the community. And because of the presenters we had there, we also then had representatives from across the community, whether Muslim or not. Everybody was keen and engaged and interested because that was the time when, every part of the news, certainly London news, was about knife crime. That it was becoming a pandemic almost, and all of those kind of things. So, yeah, I just wanted to share that because that step was very important to get community buy-in because that's important.
100%. And I think, unfortunately, so often we do initiatives and we don't look for the community buy-in. And that really can make or break things that we're doing. But do you know, I'd never thought, when both of you raised this, I'd never thought about the fact that other items would be put in the
Oh,
knife bin,
so many.
such as firearms and so forth. So that's really, it's fascinating to think that that's getting not just knives off the streets, but guns and other weapons off the streets, which is incredibly important. So, Brother Rahman, I wanted to ask you, obviously, it's been highlighted, kind of how the installation kind of came about and so forth, but how much did it cost and what other factors did you consider in when you were installing the bin?
So our bin was a partnership with Bishop Desmond Jadu and local authorities. So I believe it went through. I mean, I wasn't with the masjid in 2015, but it was installed in 2015. But I believe it went through PCC. So as far as the application for that is concerned. And from what I understand, we are looking to get a new bin, and there is funding available in that. But don't quote me on that, please. Um, so we're trying to kind of highlight the bin even further because of the growing need for it. To be honest, and trying to get more billboard campaigns and press releases and things like that uh, through the system. So in terms of funding, I believe it was done through PCC.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you. And it's one of the things, as you highlighted, it was done as in a partnership, and these things are really important when they're done in partnership, especially interfacing with local councils and local
Yeah,
police and
look,
things. It really gives buy-in.
yeah, I think it's not just a problem that's within just local communities. It's a wider problem for every community. And I think unless you kind of work together, I think it's not going to work really, to be honest.
No, definitely, because I understand when Glasgow really started to address their knife crime, that's what they started to do. It was about partnerships, it was about organizations working
That's
together
correct. Yeah.
and looking at the root of the problem.
Yeah. I think there's so much thought that still needs to go on, especially when we've got a kind of a growing generation now. We've got a new generation that are growing, and I think we have to tackle it all over again. I think the generation from 2015 to today has has grown quite widely. I think it's a new issue now, to be honest. And I think because of the increase, we've seen a 10% increase in the West Midlands. I mean, that should really sound alarm bells in itself, really.
No, definitely, and especially when you consider that 50% of the Muslim population is under the age of 25, and that knife crime really does affect our youth. We need to be thinking long term and seriously about this. One of the questions, though, that I wanted to ask about it is when the knives are put there. Now, you've said obviously it's every 6 months yourself. Ashrad, sorry, how often do you open the bins and so forth?
So we don't open the bins ourselves. We
Yeah.
have an agreement with the local community policing service, who would do all of that. They'd open it, they'd take pictures, they'd do an audit and all of that, in their own sort of safeguarded way, and then
Uh,
report back to the masjid, to say that yes, we've collected the bin on such and such a date, and this is what we have identified. This is the number of objects, and then they categorize them into different things, and that then gives us the assurances that of firstly the success of the bin, the ability to be able to talk at multi-faith forums, for example, or any other panels that we're part of in the local area, to really highlight and raise what's happened, and then maybe investigate further as to what is this and how did we come to this, and those kind of things, those kind of, I suppose, interventions in terms of, okay, we need more publicity, or we need whatever that is. It allows you to then make some logical conclusions and decisions on those conclusions, say this is how you move forward in that time frame. I think slightly different to the way you've done it at Green Lane. We paid up front, and the reason for that is, even though we had the opportunity potentially to have a discussion with the local authority and so on and so forth, I think just the rigmarole and bureaucracy for us is just,
yeah, of course. Yeah.
it's just too much. And I think what we always aim to do is to show people the opposite side of their fears, right? So we're always open to opening the masjid to anybody in the community, irrespective, Muslim or otherwise, just opening out so that they know exactly what's going on behind closed doors, try to be as transparent as possible. This is what we do, 5 times prayers, and whatever it is, that we do from a religious perspective, take the opportunity to explain it to them, but then also say, we care about everybody in the community, and that's why we take some of the actions we take. That's a really important step again, because the non-Muslim communities are a key stakeholder for anything that you do at the masjid. Right, so Ramadan, for example, you get crowds at Jummah, you get crowds at Eid, you get all of those things. And what we found is that that level of tolerance of the non-Muslim community is much higher. They participate during Ramadan. COVID time, we all work together to support, human beings, irrespective of, delivering parcels and groceries. And we've got a food bank operating out then. So if you, I believe at Green Lane, a food bank community kitchen operating outside the masjid. Again, creating that sense of harmony, but also the shared sense of concern for the community. And that's really important. So we paid £2,500 to get the bin and basically lock it into the concrete, bolt it in so that it can't be moved. And then there's an ongoing, I think it's something like £600 a year or thereabouts, to just service the bin in a sense, and service the collections and all of that, because we work through a third party. I think the brother showed a picture of a bin. That's the bin that we've got. The first picture that he showed. But what I'll also do after this, through the brother that's running this session, is share the press release, that, or a press release that was done in 2021, which then shows the impact that the bin had in the intervening period between 2019 and 2021, which actually showed quite a significant decrease in the number of knife crimes that happened. Some attributed to COVID, of course, without a shadow of a doubt, but actually COVID time, it went up again because people's mental state, and young people in particular, lockdown, not being able to go anywhere, meet anyone, do anything, and obviously the mental state deteriorated. So yeah, there's a bit of that, but you'll see through the press release that we have had a positive impact on the community in Wandsworth.
No, that's absolutely brilliant. And it's really fascinating to hear both sides that at your mosque you have bought it and paid for it and all that kind of stuff. And at Green Lane there's funding and you've gone down the route of working in partnerships and so forth. And I think that's really important for mosques to understand that there are many different ways to engage with it and there are many different ways to go on that journey. So if you're a little mosque who is maybe right in the centre of an area which is sorry, can I just ask people to mute? I've got a bit of an echo coming back there. Thank you. But yeah, if you're in a little mosque in an area which has maybe got high knife crime but not able to afford to put that initial £2,500 out, then actually you could go and look for funding and contact the local authority and so forth, and it could make a real difference. And that's one of the things that you've highlighted, that it's actually making a difference to the area, and it feels as though it's making a difference to the area, which is really important. But one of the other things that I wanted to ask, because I think this is concerning for many people, especially you highlighted the fact that the council come and deal with it, or third party come and deal with the knives and categorize them and report back. And I'm sure it's exactly the same in Green Lane Mosque as well, meaning that none of the staff or volunteers or anything ever need to handle these, which is great. But do the young people or older people who are handing these in, is there a criminalized matter or issue around it? Like, will they be criminalized because they have handed in that knife, or is it completely anonymous and nobody will ever know?
So for ourselves, certainly it is. Sorry, I'm getting feedback,
Sorry.
so I don't know who that is.
Sorry, Brother Verman, can you mute for a second, please? Sorry, it's just
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, thank you so much. And yeah, Brother Ashad, if you can come back in, and then Brother Rahman will come to yourself after that, if that's okay.
So for ourselves, it's completely anonymized. That was really, really important. So where we have cited the bin, we actually had a CCTV camera in that section outside of the masjid. So what we did was actually had that repointed so that there's no CCTV that is overlooking. So anybody who had a need to use the bin, it's completely anonymous. And unless there's passers-by at the time or whatever, even if it's the local police, because everybody in this area in Wandsworth knows of the bin and they know of the importance of it being anonymous, because at the end of the day, it's going to be a question of being clever and trying to catch someone versus actually a crime happening, right? So that's the balance that we continue to speak to law enforcement about and the local authority about. So we're very confident that it is still anonymous. Certainly from our side, it is, and we don't get involved in who's coming to the bin and why they've come to the bin.
No, that's brilliant, and I think that's incredibly important. And Brother Rahman, is it the same in Green Lane Mosque as well?
It is the same, yeah. We actually have CCTV just above the knife bin, but what we did was um, we've got a big sign overlooking the bin, and that says knife bin, but that covers the camera. So it's really important for us to actually, again, same as Brother Arshad said, for the youth to have complete for them to remain completely anonymous. The police, when they do, I mean, they'll come in, they'll come and collect the knives. Again, it's the same with Brother Ashad. We don't hold the key to the knife bin or anything like that. It's done through Bishop Desmond. And when they come in, again, we make sure that everything is always kept anonymous.
No, that's brilliant. And I think that'll be incredibly important. One, for those that are putting the knives and the weapons there, to know that it's anonymous, that they're safe,
Yeah.
that it's not going to come back on them.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's one of the main aspects of the knife bin, really, to be honest, that they can completely just keep it anonymous, and they don't need to come into the mosque to tell us that they. We've had kids come into the mosque and hand in knives without thinking that we're going to get the police involved, the local authorities involved, and it's nice that they trust us in that manner. But at the same time, it's very important that they do remain anonymous, so they feel comfortable they can use the knife bin as and when they want to. Because that's our goal, isn't it? Just make sure you're using the bin. Whatever you have on you, just place it in the bin. And I think that's the main aspect of all of it, really.
Do you know, that's amazing that kids have also come in and handed the knives in, that they feel
Yeah.
that level of trust in yourselves. Have you
Yeah.
noticed with that happening that actually there has been a difference in any of these young people? That there have been changes, the fact that they're no longer carrying weapons on them?
We run a youth club that grows every year. Some of these kids have returned to the mosque. It's not a case of us kind of pointing at them and whatever. We just include them, and we want them to stay in a safe place. Now, we want you to stay in the masjid. We don't want you to stay out there. So whatever is that you need, we've got kids that are volunteering regularly. They volunteer with the youth clubs. We have Friday community kitchens and food banks and stuff like that. So they always readily just want to get involved, and that's only because, and you can see it in their face, really, to be honest. That's only because they want to stay away from the crowd that they're in. So they just want another place to be, and we at GLM try and make sure that we can provide that. Our youth club can get really, really rowdy, but at the same time, we have to have a place for them. That's what's important for us. And I know GLM have had a youth club since the early 80s. I actually went there as a child because I lived in the area. So I
You
used to be
don't look
part.
that old. You don't look that old, brother.
Oh, really? Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
No, it looked very similar
Yeah, yeah,
side as well. So we don't have a formal youth club per se, but we have lots of youth events where we have the opportunity for girls as well as boys having their own leadership, if you like, at these events. So we have girls netball, for example, which is going crazy. We've got like 2 classes a week. There's other things that the girls get together and do, the sisters get together and do. Um, the boys, they'll do some sports activities inside because it's actually a sports hall that we've got within the masjid as well. So use that for like five-a-side. We've got table tennis tables and we got, and it's just a way of releasing their energies, I guess,
yeah,
in,
yeah,
in that Islamic environment. So we have Nasiha as well as
yeah.
part of that youth activity. And what we've also done is actually created, sort of spaces where we've got counselors Muslim counselors sort of being part of that volunteering group. So if anybody's got a specific issue on a one-on-one basis that they want to talk about, then that's really important. So one of the post things that we did when we had that conference for a Lives Not Knives campaign was we actually worked with the council to create a work match program for, again, the Muslim and the non-Muslim community. So being where we are, we've had a lot of development in Battersea. You may have heard of Battersea Power Station and the development there, and it's, we've had Apple come in and all sorts of other organizations that have come in, and that work match is basically young people submit their details with their CV, covering letter, whatever it is, and the council will then match them. Those that live in the borough or work in the borough, they will match them to open vacancies within the borough. Now, what that did was actually gave it. So we had this work match team outside the masjid at Balaman Tooting every Jummah, after every Jummah. So young people can just basically engage with the council, put down their details, and then that there goes the work match thing. So the council will then match up opportunities in the borough for these people, giving them employment opportunities and financial empowerment effectively. And that takes their mind off, all of this other stuff that they may be thinking about, and herd mentality and getting involved with their friends in bad things and all of that kind of stuff. So that was a follow-up, but actually making it more positive. So creating a positive out of a negative situation. So again, that was really important for why people need to engage in the community with the knife bin.
No, that's brilliant. And from both of you, it sounds like it's a very holistic approach that's being taken. It's making sure that there is other things there for young people to engage in. Although I think even if it was a very small mosque and there wasn't the capacity to do that, even just having the knife bin is going to make a difference. And Brother Ashad, you had highlighted that during COVID, obviously there was a fall in knife and then there was a rise, but in the area there feels as though there is a reduction and there is a change. Do you feel that that knife crime is being tackled by having these knife bins? Do you feel that I mean, it's not going to solve overnight, but do you feel that it is making a difference?
Look, I feel it is. So just the number of collections that or the number of things that have been collected from the bin since COVID has been significant, right? Significant. Um, our largest collection was probably about 350 in 2021 out of the bin, and that was never expected because of the lockdowns and everything else. We weren't expecting that, but in hindsight, when you think about it, it was because of the lockdowns and because people intermittently may have been young people in particular because of the boredom and everything that was going on. It was doomsday scenario, wasn't it? Until we started getting the vaccines and understanding more and stuff like that. So that would have had a negative mental health impact. And that negative mental health impact in some could have transpired in doing things that they would not otherwise do or getting involved with stuff they would not otherwise get involved with. And so in hindsight, you can understand why it, shot that high, particular in the local area. But equally, I think the impact of the knife bin in the local area, it's again, it's a holistic impact, isn't it? So yes, and you'll see this from the news article that was written about this once it's shared with you. We have seen a decrease. Well, not we, but the council has seen a decrease in the knife crime percentages. But equally, if you look on the holistic level, there are more people actually engaging with counselors in the Muslim community, and that's really, really important.
Mhm.
The general sort of confidence across the community about Muslims having a masjid in the community that is doing all of these things that are open to them, even though they're not Muslim, for example, and everybody being embracing of them, that is a holistic opportunity. And actually, that then reduces the amount of potential crime. Um,
Definitely.
because, and it is all linked somehow, isn't it? There needs to
Mhm.
be a crime for it to be recorded. ultimately. But if you've got understanding, and if you're fostering that understanding through interventions around financial empowerment, through mental health strategies, through, providing food banks, cost of living crisis that we've had recently, of course, that would have had a negative impact as well. So there's all of these things that you just need to keep on top of. They're all holistic reasons for why things happen.
No,
So yeah, that's
100%. No, that's great. Thank you. And it's, that's it's really great to hear that there is a difference. And yes, it is many factors, but it's that thing of if we don't put any of those factors in place, then there will be no difference. So having a knife bin is one of those factors that can really lead to a reduction in crime in the area and so forth. And Brother Rahman, if you found the same in Birmingham, that in the Green Lane Mosque, that having the knife bin has made an impact. Oh, sorry, you're muted.
No, look, I think it definitely has an impact. Just the number of knives that come into the knife bin, I think it just clearly shows that it does have an impact. However, I do think there's this, and I'm sure everybody will agree that there's just so much more work to do in that sense, because what we're doing at the moment is prevention is better than cure. And I think, like Brother Asha said, the holistic view in terms of whether the brothers that are so passionate about it are doing the youth club, that are engaging with the youth and making sure they're involved in the mosque to whatever other socioeconomic kind of issues that we tend to have within inner city areas. And I think all those things play a part in it. I think we're not doing nowhere near enough in terms of government and council. I think we can do so much more. And I think, I was just thinking the other day after this invite came through, I was thinking we had a huge campaign for speeding and dangerous driving. And the campaign went so viral where they were showing toppled cars on the side of the road. There were, and all over Birmingham, we had toppled cars everywhere, burnt out cars, and it was a great campaign that they did to emphasize on the point of dangerous driving. The same went with BBC licensing, name and shame. They did a huge campaign around that. I think, when it comes to knife crime, I think they're just not doing nowhere enough, unfortunately. But I think it's the local organizations, whether it's the mosques, the churches, or the synagogues. We talk with the local synagogue as well that do a lot of youth activities and a lot of youth events within our area. And I think those are the guys that are championing through this, to be honest.
No, definitely. And I think you raised an important point that we all need to do more and everybody needs to be engaging more. I think one of the things that really shouts to me about it is it's obvious young people want it. It's obvious the fact that knives are being handed in, guns are being handed in, other things are being, they want, it's a cry for help to me that these young people are going, I don't want to have to carry a blade.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it's great for a young person to think, I don't want to carry this anymore. I'm going to put it into the knife bin or the nearest knife bin that I can find. So I think that, just having more knife bins in the area would make so much more of a difference.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I didn't ask yourself, how do you advertise a knife bin? How do you make it known to, apart from the fact that it's there and it's got a big knife?
I mean, it's there. We've got a big sign. We've done press releases so many times. We had one recently. I've got a video that I was going to share. We had one recently of Birmingham Mail doing the interview with one of our youth organizers. So he organized the event for the youth, and then that was the event where the knife was handed in at the end of the event. Previously, we've done, other than press releases, we've done billboard campaigns and so on and so forth. But I think it's the talks that really engage the youth. So, trying to target the youth in terms of the lectures that we give, they tend to really work from our point of view. But I think again, like, it's, there's so much more work to be done, and the ways of tackling it, and things like that.
No, definitely. And I think hopefully following up from this session, that if you can both provide the press releases and some of the
Yeah, of
information
course.
so
Yeah,
that people can actually see physical, tangible, the different steps. Because often, especially in some of the smaller mosques where maybe it's just all volunteers and so forth, it's kind of the where do we even start? So we get the knife bin, but how do we advertise? How do we do this? So seeing a
yeah.
press release, seeing the different things, I think will be incredibly useful for those who are interacting with it. But I know that we're running short on time now. So what I wanted to ask was final thoughts from you both. Brother Ashrad, what are your final thoughts? Anything that we've not covered so far, or anything that we have that you just want to highlight again and make sure that people really understand the importance of having this kind of initiative in your mosque?
So what would be the final thought? So I think I've kind of covered the point around having a holistic approach, having something that actually has buy-in from stakeholders across the community, whether, they're a congregation of the masjid or if they don't belong to Islam at all, just having the buy-in of those people that just walking up and down the street or living around the corner from the masjid, so that they know that there is a purpose for this and the purpose serves the common good or the greater good of the community. So that's the first thing that we just need to be very conscious of, is that engagement. And I think the second thing is to emphasize the fact that, whether you are able to get funding locally, like Brother Rahman Rahman's organization has been able to do, or whether you need to fund it yourself, ultimately, if the community is donating to the masjid, they're donating for a purpose and they're donating for some value to come back. So this is beyond the sadaqah and the zakah, for example, just the regular donations. We need to be able to show the value for people donating to the masjid, because in that way there's more barakah and you get more donations because everybody sees that it's going into a good cause in that sense. So don't be afraid to spend the money, because you would then get the recognition in the community of doing good. And that's what the masjid is there for, right? It is my fundamental belief. Any business or any house, the value of those goes up where there is a masjid. And if it doesn't, we're doing something wrong. That's my final thoughts.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. And so Drew, we need to show the benefit of our organisations. We need to, and whether that's a mosque or a charity, we need to show the benefit to the community. It's so important. And Brother Rahman, what are your final thoughts, please?
I think Brother Asad touched upon a really, really good point in terms of community money. When it comes to a masjid and a local community masjid, that masjid tends to belong to the community, because they've been donating to the mosque for many, many years. Their grandfathers, sons, children, they've probably been going to the same same masjid kind of thing. But what tends to happen is they will question, where is this money going? And it's the same with every mosque. But if they see that you're putting money into good causes, the money comes in. The money comes in. People want to support you. People come from afar to support you. They think, this is the work that you're doing. I want to be involved. And I think mosques should not be afraid to spend that money. We've spent money in areas, like our youth club is our Dawah department is big. But people can see that we're spending the community money on those aspects in terms of getting the youth into the masjid, and I think that is a huge point, that I've kind of gone on the back of Brother Arshad from. But I think again, I think we really need to push the local council to do more. To be honest, I mean, I think they're not doing enough as they should be. I don't know about Birmingham. I heard they were broke, but we can still get something out of them, I believe. But yeah, more campaigns, more campaigns, more campaigns. We need to be huge. Social media is there, for the taking, kind of thing. I mean, we push out as much as we can. So I think we just need to carry on, really, to be honest.
No, definitely, and thank you so much. And that's so important. One, that we are accountable to our communities, and
Yeah,
we
of
need
course.
to
Yeah.
take that really seriously. But also, importantly, we have to think about the fact that there are lots of things that we can do on a budget and on a shoestring. And if there's the want and the ability, and if it can save a young person from ending up in prison or ending up, with serious injuries or dead, then actually it's
Yeah.
our duty and our responsibility to act on that. But thank you so much for the panel discussion and for taking part in that. That was really insightful. I'm going to pass back to our event host, who I know has got a few final things that we're going to do this evening. So thank you so much for taking part in our
No,
panel.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And for those who maybe couldn't hear at the beginning, and also for those who joined late, thank you very much, obviously, so we've got Lindsay Taylor, who is the CEO of Mend, Arshad Dawad, who is from Tooting and Balin Mosque, and Rahman Chowdhury from GLM Green Lane Masjid in Birmingham, who've as you've heard, have had very good success in implementing these bins. So the point is, we now have a case of 1.5, 1,500 mosques in the UK. How can we level up? What can we do to take it to the next level? So that's what we're trying to do here with this webinar. Obviously, we're trying to get that knowledge from a key stakeholders who've done this before and who have that knowledge. And how can we now roll this out to you guys watching here? And we're going to record this as well. And the idea is, going forward, we're going to work with, as a Muslim Council of Britain, we're going to work with these key talents around the country, in the case of knife crime, who know how this is done, and then prepare a kind of a one-page guide on how can we do this, and then work with you and local councils to actually be able to implement these knife bins in the first place. And I think, whilst the kind of fundamental essence of this talk has been about knife bins, it's revealed a lot of other things as well, which is that there are a lot of other good things that need to be done, and that are being done by mosques that we can share. For example, look, why are our children on the streets? Why are they? Some of them feeling the need to use knives. Do they feel disenfranchised? Do they feel they're not listened to? Are they bored? So, like some of like you guys, like Brother Rahman mentioned, that the foot and Brother Ashad, that football in the masjid, keeping them occupied, making their voice feel heard. So there's a lot to be done. So, in terms of practical steps going forward from here, like I said, we will prepare a kind of a one-page kind of bullet point installation guide. I'll speak to in more depth, Brother Rahman and Brother Arshad, as well as obviously see what do our stakeholders have, what resources that we have to help you implement this. And obviously, it'll be a one-to-one kind of project basis, in terms of you can come back to us and we can give you further help on how to install these. And I think raised a fundamental point where we have 1,500 mosques in the UK. We have a lot of good practice that we can share with each other, be it knifing, be it safeguarding. There's a lot of work to be done to level up to the next level. That's all from me.
What
If
would be
anyone
useful?
has any questions, happy for direct them to whoever you want to. But is anyone who wants to have any questions? And just remember to obviously unmute your mic.
Sorry, brother. I think you were breaking up slightly. Can you
Oh,
hear
it's
me?
breaking up again. I think, if
Yeah.
anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, I have one question. I think what you mentioned about having 1,500 mosques in the UK.
Hmm.
I think it's all about just getting together and trying to tackle this, right? And I think what Brother Ashad said about making donations and trying to encourage other people to make donations, and the impact it has on people when they see you doing such work. And I think, unfortunately, some masajids, they do hold on to their money if they can, for whatever reason that may be. But that's their own business. But I think the campaign in itself to get other masajids to try and get involved in whatever campaign is launched, I think that would probably go a long way. What's the next step? That's what my question is, I think.
I think you're spot on. In terms of, I think with a lot of mosques, from my kind of little experience, what I've seen is that they're still trying to always find their feet. So they're
Yeah.
always fighting donations coming in, and then they have their Friday collection, and say a big charity will swoop in and take all that money. So they're always on the back foot, and
Mhm.
they're starting everything from the ground up. How, especially in newer mosques or where committees have changed. Again, they start from how do we start up a committee? How what's the safeguarding lead? How do we do data governance? They're just stuck and embroiled in all of that. So I think
Yeah.
masjids like yourself, we can get that advice and actually help these mosques level up so we're not stuck. Basically, we don't want every single mosque to start again from the beginning when they're starting up. We have a lot of talent that you guys have been running this for decades. So I guess it's a case of asking that knowledge out there. Yes, Brother Rashad?
Yeah. I also think, sorry, I'm just gonna
Yeah, yeah, go on, sorry.
say one point. Yeah, sorry. I bumped into we work closely with some of the charities, Islamic Relief, Human Appeal. Human Appeal just did a campaign to clean up masjids on a voluntary basis. So they'll come in and they'll give the masjid a deep clean before Ramadan. I think the bigger charities, when we talk about Human Appeal and Islamic Relief, I think they need to also be involved. I mean, they run some great campaigns when they need to, but I think they need to be part of this campaign.
No, I think, yeah, I mean, that's a very fair point in terms of, I think even Islamic Relief has done homeless campaigns. They do a lot of local campaigns. And yeah, I mean, they have the funding, they have the access to resources. So it's about working
Yeah,
together, bringing all those resources together. I think you're spot on, actually. But, even from
yeah,
this discussion, between yourself, Lindsay, a lot of good points have come from here. And I think it's a case of engaging more and more, putting our heads together, saying how can we level up? How can we do? Okay, we've had enough masjid extensions. We've changed enough carpets in mosques. How do we take it to the next level?
yeah.
Why is our community crying out? Why is there a crisis in our youth? How can we change this?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Rashad? Yeah, sorry.
Something very similar to what Brother Rahman said just now. We engage equally with Islamic Relief, Human Appeal, and others, bigger charities. And one of the things I've always said to them as a challenge is, as much as it's great to send money abroad, we have a whole community here that need funds. Even in some cases, Sadaqah funds is required. So every opportunity, I do say to them and get them involved in local initiatives. So they have been involved, for example, during our COVID distributions. They have been involved in multitudes of other, sort of local initiatives that have really driven, I suppose, for them, their, that reputation that they are there not just for Ramadan. They are there throughout the course of the year. And that's important because very obviously they also need to build that level of trust with the community when they're coming in Ramadan, and all you ever see them is in Ramadan collecting X thousands of pounds. Um, and they get it. Islamic Relief absolutely get it and work very well with Tufail. I know you do as well, Brother Rahman. You work really well with
Yeah.
Tufail. He's a great brother.
Yeah.
Um, so, there is that point I wanted to make. But I think more importantly, the point I wanted to make is the fact that what would be really useful to see, and I'm going to bring this up on Saturday, inshallah, as well, um, is is the just a, a beginner's process guide for a masjid, so that I'm not saying standardize for every single masjid. I'm saying this is an idea of the processes that to be a masjid that addresses Gen Z, for example, because Gen Z is the one we need to worry about the most probably
Yeah.
at this point, and to be encompassing and embracing of Gen Z or Gen Alpha. We now need to take that next step and that leap of faith with Allah that, this is what we need to do. And these are the processes as a minimum that a masjid should be focused on in order to make the best of the community, but also to make the best of themselves.
Yeah, I think 100%. I think on the first with the funding, I think and there needs to be a culture shift as well in terms of everyone wants to donate to their countries back home. we've been living in this country, or if you're an immigrant, you might have been living in this country for more years than so-called back home, yet the money still goes back there. So it needs to be understanding that we can't cry out for change and cry out for the issues in our communities and then not actually fund those initiatives. So I think I think you're quite right with that. And I think with the beginner's guide, I think that is a must do. And even in terms of like almost like a buddy scheme, in terms of okay, look, this is Masjid X that's starting up or has been revamped, got a new committee. Why don't we buddy you with this mosque, and then you can go to them to get that help directly. Obviously, understanding that mosque will have their own commitments as well, but just give a bit of advice again, so we can jump that train. I think that's it needs to be done. We can't keep on reinventing the wheel again and again and again 1,500 times. Are there any
That's it.
questions from anyone who's participating at all? Okay. So what I'll do, so for the people participating, we'll send out a feedback form. Obviously, apologies. I think some of my audio was not very clear, so I'll sort that out. Not a problem. But if you fill out the feedback form, then you'll get a certificate as well that obviously you've attended a Knife Bin webinar. But obviously, the practical steps is after this, I will get in touch personally with Brother Rashad, who is part of the Muslim Council Britain as well as and Brother Rahman as well, and then we'll formulate kind of how can we make this kind of a guide to take this forward, and then obviously get in contact with our affiliates and what connection we have with local councils to see how we can get these nice bins in place step by step. It's not going to be an overnight success. It's going to take a long time, but these projects need to be well underway. We've said at the beginning of the presentation, knife crime is massive in the UK. 50,000, almost half of all homicides is by knives, and the knife bins are full in Birmingham. They're full in London. It needs to be done. Oh, sorry, there's a question there, brother Mohammed Kosbar. If you unmute yourself, yeah.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum everyone. Jazakumullah khair for that. Muhammad Kosbar from Finsbury Park Mosque. It is a great initiative, and I think it should be replicated in our mosques. And definitely, we are going to look at it, at doing it, inshallah ta'ala. This webinar is quite important for us to understand, and from your experience, we avoid mistakes, especially when you talk about protecting these young people who giving up these knives in the mosque without causing them any trouble or any problems. This is the sort of things we would like. We need to invest within our community. Yes, the mosques are doing great work in terms of helping our charities, national charities, to help our brothers and sisters around the world. But I think initiatives like that in our mosque is quite important to inspire and empower our community here in the UK. And for the long term, that investment will help all of us to educate the community and make it stronger and empower our young people in the future, which is very important. My question just to the brothers, I mean, I didn't attend from the beginning, but I don't know if you have any sort of statistics, how many young people gave up their weapon, their knives, I mean, to you since you start this project until now. So if there is any figure, is it do you think people really taking such an initiative seriously, especially young people, and making progress in terms of convincing them to give up their knives or whatever? What about their families or their parents? Do you think such initiative will encourage the parents who probably know that their children or their young people have problem with this, encourage them to do more, to try to convince them to give up these sort of things? It would be great if we can have some sort of numbers. Jazakumullah khair.
But Brother Muhammad, so I'll go first if that's okay, Brother Rahman.
Yes, of course.
So we installed our bin, I think November or December 2019. And since then, we've collected about 1,500 or slightly more sharp objects, which included machetes, firearms, and a whole manner of, sharp objects. Um, during COVID, we were expecting a decrease in that, but it increased significantly, around 2021 of the amount of stuff. And I think there was nearly sort of 500, I think I mentioned earlier, there. Now, the way we kicked off, the need for this was more about a campaign around Lives Not Knives, where we got the community together. We had, all sorts of people. We had a bishop there. We had counselors for mental health there. And we, apart from the sort of the local mufti, it was for parents and carers primarily, and their young people came along as well. The parents and carers learnt things that they didn't know before. And because the counselors were there as well, talking about it from, in that language, that got a lot of engagement from parents, where parents felt confident to have discussions with their children at home if they felt that something wasn't quite right, or to be able to signpost them to one of the Muslim counselors if that was felt important to them. So in terms of figures, just said them, but in terms of the engagement, that's a really important step. Before you get to that point where you've got this knife bin, you engage with parents and carers locally, you engage with the wider community, not just the Muslim community, you engage maybe with the council, police officers, etc., so that you get the buy-in and not just stick a bin there, and then you convince everybody that this is actually, anonymous. It's not to get you in trouble. It's not to, do any of that stuff. It's to make sure that the community is safe, but more importantly, you, who could be a victim or a perpetrator, you are safe as well. I hope that helps, Brother Muhammad.
Yeah, that's exactly khair. That's help. I wonder. I mean, I have a suggestion. I mean, for us not to start from the scratch, let me say, it would be great. I mean, if both of you, because I'm sure you have some sort of material. When I say material, I mean posters, other things, which probably you can help us. If you can share this with us, and then we can use this. I mean, of course, we will do our own, but we can use the content to start this project with from not from scratch. Actually, at least we have some sort of material to start with. It will be great if you can share this information with us through MCB. Jazakumullah khair.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we need a nationwide campaign. To be honest, I think we can do very well from it.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think keeping the branding and everything the same, so it just has more of an impact, rather than, of course, brother, whatever help you need will always be there for you. But I really think we need to make a huge impact in terms of just being out there. And that's when it comes to branding, we know that the same brand you see everywhere, it becomes a brand in itself. And I think a campaign that can become a brand for all the masajids in the area or across the country, I think it's worth looking into, maybe.
Yeah, with potentially a directory of all the masajid that have been, that is available to the community. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Brother Helmi, you had a hand up as well, if you want to join in.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair for the excellent initiative and webinar. Just one suggestion regarding the marketing component. Actually, I'm MAB MCB and also volunteer in the Muslim Student House Masjid and Community Center in Birmingham. Just maybe marketing. You've seen probably what happened last week. I'm just literally out of Heartlands Hospital where I work. You've seen on the social media regarding this fake thing, AI thing about knife thing in reaction to a knife, crime, and people coming and attacking Heartlands Hospital falsely, and spread by Elon Musk and stuff like that. So basically, I think we need probably to do more marketing about, similar to the Visit My Mosque Day campaign and similar, just to show the positive impact of those initiatives on the Muslim community. Especially maybe you can do something in Ramadan. I know it's short notice, but we can try to advertise it, and maybe more marketing in social media about the positive initiatives that Muslims organization and things like this can be sort of spread to counteract, not to be just reactive, but to counteract the negative things on the social media. So, Jazakallah khair for this.
Yeah, I mean, actions speak louder than words, right? So if we can have a national campaign, people will obviously we need to do the marketing out there as well. People need to see it, but firsthand, and people can see, well, actually, the Muslim local communities, they are making a real and genuine difference. They're bringing value to us. They're making our communities safer, and actually, as can be seen, and not just in the UK, but the stats even from the US as well, that quite often a lot of people would rather have a Muslim neighbor because they feel safer, and a lot of that is to do with the perception of the Muslim. And our religion is one of mercy, and people should understand this and they should see this. But we have to show them that through our dawah. So yeah, certainly it needs to be both. It needs to be marketing there, but we need to have actual action as well. Just like brother Arshad and Rahman have done. They actually have knife bins there. They're collecting them in. They've actually got. It's worth crying for that. You actually have Muslim youth coming into the masjid to hand the knives in. That's amazing. That's amazing that they feel that they can do that without being judged, without ramifications, and actually turn over a new leaf. Brother Ayub, you had your hand up.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Jazakallah khair to all the panelists and Sister Lindsay and MTV for hosting such an important session. At Here for Youth, we work with almost 70 masjids up and down the country, helping them to establish their youth club for teenagers in particular. And I just really wanted to applaud the great example being set by Greenland Mosque and Balmain Tooting Mosque. Establishing a culture of safety for young people, making the masjid a safe space, is at the heart of what we as an organization and what at the heart, inshallah, what MCB 2.0 will seek to do. Knife bin or no knife bin, if we can turn the masjid into a safe place with trusted adults where our young people can find and seek shelter, you know, they will surrender more than just their weapons. And I think that's this responsibility on us as community leaders to create that place of safety. We don't need to spend thousands of pounds right now. We can start to lay the foundation for that culture in all of our organizations. So thank you to all of you, especially our two panelists, for sharing your experience. It's really, really important that those of us who have progressed in certain areas are able to share that with others. And as Sheikh Mohammed Kosber said, we need to learn from each other and carry this forward and shortcut, what's mashallah taken you guys years to accomplish and get to this point. We can now bring the rest of the community on that journey much quicker, inshallah. So Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair.
Thank you for your kind words. Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. I could have ended it better myself. I will get we'll get the resources out as soon as possible. We'll record the webinar, and I want it to be polished. So anything with the audio wasn't great, we can record over that, but we can make it nice and slick, not a problem. We'll get the resources out. I'll get in touch with both of you guys, inshallah, soon, about how we can compile that together. And inshallah, this can be the start of an amazing initiative. Thank you. I know it was very short notice. Thank you very much, guys, for coming in. Much appreciated. Please, inshallah, make dua that this initiative can be successful and Allah can take us from strength to strength. May Allah grant us the tawfiq. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.